If you have ever wondered why people with autism, specifically women, tend to really enjoy and get very interested in true crime, this video is for you. So if you're ready, let's get going. This subject is very important to me because I have two family members that have ASD. So as I was just talking about, many people with ASD, that's the autism spectrum disorder, many of those folks tend to really get interested in true crime. When they're watching these things, they tend to become very focused, very intent, and I'm going to explain to you why that is. First, let me dispel a couple of things of what it is not. You may have heard of hybristophilia. I did an entire video on that. That is the fascination that some people have and the desire to be with someone who has done bad things. They generally want to be romantically involved with people that have been part of criminal activity. So is this fascination hybristophilia? No. Also, people have asked me before, is autism a cluster A or cluster B personality disorder? The answer is no. Although many of the things you will see people on the spectrum exhibit from both cluster A and cluster B, ASD is not part of those specific diagnoses. There are two reasons that this is fascinating to people on the spectrum. The first reason is problem solving. Generally, people that are on the spectrum get a dopamine hit when they're involved in intense problem solving. You may have noticed before that these good people tend to enjoy things like in the old days, Tinker Toys, or some of them really enjoy Legos, even others things like Rubik's Cubes, because this engages their brain in problem solving and in learning. And as I just said, that provides a dopamine rush. And when they're not problem solving and not learning, sometimes some of them will drop into a little bit of anxiety or fear. And fear is the second reason for the deep interest in true crime. And if you know anybody like this, and I have people in my family that have ASD, you'll notice that when you combine the problem solving and learning with bouts at times of intense fear or anxiety, there is a very specific interest in these types of scenarios. And if you know somebody that has ASD, you may have seen when sometimes they will go into something called catastrophizing. And what this means is you take a very common situation and something that shouldn't be anything more than mundane, and you turn it into something catastrophic, something that's way out of bounds from what it should be. For instance, maybe the boss comes up to this person and says, "Hey, can I talk to you for just a minute?" They immediately think, "Oh my goodness, I am losing my job." This is very common because of the anxiety and the fear and the oversensitivity to something that may be considered a catastrophe. One of the worst things that you can imagine is something criminal happening to you. So what happens is they engage in the story that's happening as they're watching criminal activity be solved. Do you remember the problem solving thing I told you at the beginning? They get a little bit of a dopamine rush from the solving of the crime itself. And this causes them to want to watch more of it. Because even though it can be scary, they've learned that confronting their fears will keep them safe. If you're afraid of elevators, you go and you see a building that has elevators, and the next week you go up and you see that there's an elevator in the building, and the next week you go up and you touch the elevator, and the next week you open the doors to the elevator, and so on and so forth until you're less afraid of the elevator. Same principle here. If one of the biggest fears is something criminal happening to you, they learn and they get the dopamine rush by engaging the defense mechanism that comes with the problem solving of one of their worst fears, which is criminal activity. So if you have someone in your family or someone that you know that have ASD that really likes to watch true crime and they seem to be fascinated by it, they can't pull themselves away from it, understand that they're generally just engaging in problem solving as a defense mechanism to deal with fear and anxiety. And if you're still here, do me a favor, click on one of these other videos. I'll be back very soon in the next one. See you then.